allow me to tell you about the end of the world. Hantili was born in the heart of a city that was already growing old. In that year, 1213 BC, Hattusa, the great capital of the vast kingdom, still commanded respect among the mountains of Anatolia. Strongly stood the great walls and stone temples dedicated to Teshub, god of the storm and patron of the city. But beneath that greatness laid signs of exhaustion. The granaries were no longer as full, merchants had lessened, and caravans heading north had begun to avoid roads infested with bandits. It was not the best of times for the Hittites, though they wouldn't want to admit it. His father Arnowanda was a blacksmith with strong hands and a patient temper. He crafted iron tools, a craft that had become highly valued only a few generations before him, yet the temples and palaces no longer paid as they once had. So, what he truly sold each day were copper goods, cauldrons, spearheads, daggers, ornaments, and ingots that gleamed like an old flame. Hantili grew up learning to tell the purity of metal by the sound it made when hammered, to bargain without losing his smile, and to learn the gestures of men weary from travel. Thus he became a merchant of copper and iron at the age of 12. But Hantili had also grown up listening to the feats of his lineage, tales of metal and fire, of oaths sworn before 100 gods, and of blood shed in the name of the great king. His great-grandfather had died facing none other than the chariot of the mighty Ramses II at Kadesh, a battle that, according to the elders, had made the entire world tremble. His grandfather, years later, had fought on the coast, defending his kingdom from the Ahiyawa. He came back with a limp, but also with a smile and a spear he never allowed anyone to touch. And he only sold metal. Sometimes he wondered if it was a disgrace to be born after the great heroes of the golden age of the Hatti. By the time he turned 18, until he was already a proper merchant, he had walked every street of Hattusa, bargained with Egyptian and Canaanite caravans, learning to say iron in more languages than he could remember. The Assyrians had taken a liking to him, to the point that the young man ended up speaking their tongue, the language of Sargon of Akkad, fluently. He had quite a reputation for being charming, according to the women, and quite arrogant, according to the men. He always spoke with confidence and a smile. The girls loved men who could fight, and the brave Hantili could defeat any guard. Or so he claimed. Every time a soldier arrived in Hattusa with a new tale of war or glory, he listened closely, but at the same time, an uncomfortable flame burned him in the inside. Truth is, Hantili was no warrior, nor did he want to be, or at least that's what he told himself each morning, as he tightened his leather belt, checked his ingots, and went out to sell his metals in the market. He was good at what he did, no one could deny it. He knew when a piece of copper was bad, when iron should be rejected, or when the tin, now scarce, could be sold at outrageous prices. Inside Hantili's family home, the sun enters through a small stone window. The smell of bread and metal mixes in the air. Hantili eats seated beside his grandfather, who holds his soul spear with a smile.
I used to be a lively young man like you. Then I took an arrow to the knee.
Grandpa, that's the third time you've told me that.
And for the third time, it's still true. And look at me, I'm still here. As a trophy, I've got this spear, still stained with the dried blood of the Ahiyawa. Until the day I die, I'll hold it with the pride that I struck down 8 of those bastards and lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, and I'm sure they have a different version of the story.
Yeah, I'm sure they're still crying about it. In the underworld.
Hantili smiles, but deep down, he feels that invisible weight. His grandfather was a warrior, his great-grandfather a hero at Kadesh, and he only sells metal. But trading Hattusa was not what it used to be. Iron, once the pride of the Hatti, had become too common and unaffordable, and with every passing day, Hantili's profits grew smaller. In front of the king's gate to the southeast, Hantili approaches a Hittite guard, who wears a rusty helmet.
It seems that war and time have done more damage to your helmet than to your imposing face. Fortunately, I have a better metal to offer you.
That iron looks good, young man, but truth is, I can afford it. On every corner there is someone selling rusty bronze or iron for a lot less.
Maybe that's why your helmet looks rusty, good sir. Also, my copper was forged by my father's hands. A true master. It's pure, strong, and cheap. It'll last you a lifetime.
And what good is something that lasts a lifetime when I don't even know if I'll make it until the following week? Listen, son, a free piece of advice. If you truly want to make a living, stop selling to your poor brothers. Iron's not worth much here anymore. In Elam, they pay you in silver, and they say that in the Far East, they pay you in gold and cattle.
I have my reasons for staying.
Reasons or fear? Son, these walls do protect you, but they also confine you. You can't be a merchant and a coward at the same time.
But not everything outside Hattusa is worth seeing.
That's what a man says when he's never seen Nineveh, the house on Ramses, or the Tower of Babylon. The guard puts on his helmet, pats Hantili on the shoulder, and returns to his post. Hantili pretends to rearrange his copper goods, while his mind fills with memories and his breathing becomes unsteady. The young man on the outside seemed confident and cheerful, but inside, something was wrong. He didn't fear the roads for no reason, for those very roads had stolen his peace many years before. He had been 13 when he accompanied his parents on a caravan heading north. They insisted it was time for him to learn what it meant to trade beyond the city walls. They carried copper, fabrics, and a pair of pack animals under the rain. They never reached their destination. At the edge of the forest of Sipalanda, the Kashka emerged from the trees like shadows. The things he saw that day, he could never forget them. He still remembered the sound of screams and the smell of blood. That day, he saw his people die. His mother survived, but she was wounded, and she never smiled the same again. And the boy understood something terrible, that life could shatter in an instant. From then on, every time he heard the name of the Kashka, an involuntary tremor ran through his hands. He could never again look beyond the city walls without feeling that something was watching him. The walls of Hattusa were his shield, one that, over the years, had also become his prison. To everyone else, Hantili was a brave, skilled young man with a gift for words, but only he knew why he couldn't cross the city gates. It is a cold night in a tavern. The air smells of wine, wood, and spices. Before the fire, Hantili shares a table with a traveler, a man of brown skin, with an armor and a bow on his back, yet with calm eyes, observing an object in his hands, apparently a horn. He comes from a distant land, but they manage to understand each other in the tongue of the Assyrians. Merchant, there is a place you must see to understand yourself, but first, you must know this. There is no treasure more precious than history.
History? Whose history?
Of all of us, of the first men. It all began in an ancient valley in the east, under King Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord, who raised the first cities on the plains of Shinar. They say he sought to reach heaven, to build a tower so high it would touch the dwellings of the gods. But the Creator confounded the tongues of men, and thus nations were born. We can still understand each other in the tongue of Sargon. Perhaps it is a memory of the language of the first men.
The Creator.
Yes, the gods, Elohim, those who made the heavens, the earth, and all that breathes. Do you not believe in gods yourself?
Yes, we Hittite have many gods, 1,200 or maybe 1,300, but none sound like yours. So then, what is this place I must see?
Among the first cities founded by Nimrod was Erech, the great city, where kings learned to write the names in wax so they will never be forgotten.
And do you really believe that's true?
With all of my heart. For every story, every ruin, every clay tablet men leave behind, even those of your people, all point towards the first city. Erech was the beginning of everything. Whoever walks the streets will understand how it all began. Kings, writing, pride, and downfall. So go and see for yourself. When you behold the walls of Erech, which the Babylonians call Uruk, you will understand how it all began.
Why the walls of Erech?
Because they say that they were built by the greatest of the kings of Erech, Gilgamesh. If you wish to understand the value of life, you must read his epic. Do it soon. Life here is too short. The traveler drinks a final sip of water, rises and disappears into the shadows of the street. Hantili remains alone before the fire, not fully understanding what he just heard, but inside him something changes. For the first time in years, he looks east and feels something other than fear, wonder. In exchange for a fine piece of silver, Hantili managed to have a Babylonian scribe read him the Epic of Gilgamesh the day before coming back to his city, for the young man could not understand the tangled poetry himself. It was only a summary, though Hantili couldn't know the difference. He listened in fascination until the message of the story stabbed him deep into his soul. Fighting against death is impossible. Life and his pleasures fade sooner or later. The story haunted him through the night and into the early hours of dawn. The hero who had defeated divine beasts and achieved every feat, condemned to die like any other man, his body left to rot underground like that of an animal. The revelation struck hard. Nothing could save a mortal from death. Hantili was terrified by the thought of living without leaving a trace. For the first time, he tasted an even worse flavor of fear, the terror of utterly vanishing from memory. As the words of the epic echoed in his mind, his heart pounded with a mix of dread and clarity. Gilgamesh had tried to outwit death, sought impossible secrets, wandered through strange worlds, spoke and insulted gods without fear, and yet it all ended in the same place, a few meters underground. The great king could only aspire to leave something that endured in the memory of others. His only way to fight against death was to be a good husband, a good father, and a king whose name will be spoken millenniums later. Then Hantili understood something else, that to travel distant lands, to carry his metals across the world, to meet new people, that could be his way of touching eternity. Not as a god, nor as a legendary hero, but as a man who left his mark on those around him. He felt a bitter and sweet vertigo, fear and resolve intertwined. Death was certain, inevitable, but memory, that could be melted, hammered, and forged. And if he could learn to engrave his existence, not only in metals, but also in deeds and in the eyes of others, then perhaps he will not be eternal, but he will endure. Until he rose from his bed without having slept at all, his face lit by the first rays of the rising sun. For the first time in his entire life, he sought not only profit or the validation of women, but to leave behind something time could not easily erase, even if it were only a whispering history. But his world was not a safe place. Rumors of disasters came from all directions. The sea was filled with strange ships bearing painted sails, attacking coasts without warning. The cities of Anatolia suffered famine, merchants vanished from the trade routes, and the temples received fewer offerings. So Hantili decided he could not remain still. He wanted to see Eric, not merely out of curiosity, but to understand what was left of the world's beginning. He thought that perhaps in those lands he would find an answer, or at least a reason. He climbed along up the city walls. From there he could see the golden light of dawn illuminating the towers and rooftops, making the torches still burning in the silent streets glimmer. Hattusa was still absolutely beautiful. The carvings of the gods looked brighter, bathed in the light that awakened the world. For an instant, he felt guilt. Then he looked towards the source of that light, directly into it, blinding. He knew he might never return from where the sun rose, but he also understood that if he stayed, he would die slowly. Not only his body, but also his legacy. In his soul there was now a blend of fear and excitement. He was only 18 years old, with a pouch of iron and an impossible desire to taste greatness. Then he remembered that the Babylonian scribe would be departing that very morning. He knew his father would not approve, and no wonder saw him as a dreamer, too fragile to survive beyond the gates. But Hantili, without a word, began preparing for the journey. He ran the fastest he's ever ran before. The morning, like life itself, was far too short. He sold part of his copper reserves, bought a young donkey, and gathered all he needed for a long road ahead. A few hours later, at the king's gate, as the rays of the rising sun painted the walls gold and opened before him the promise of a new day, he shouted to the Babylonian scribe,
Hey, I'm going to Babylon with you.
Huh? You? Didn't you say that there was nothing for you beyond the city walls?
I've got plenty of iron to sell.
I thought you were afraid of the world out there, Hantili. What changed?
The fear of rotting in this city became much greater than the fear of what might happen out there.
I can't blame you. Here, take this dagger. Easy to use. Someone jumps on you, you stick it right in his chest. See you when you come back. Well then, let's go. Without saying farewell to anyone, the Hittite crossed the southeastern gates and began his journey into the world. The road eastward was long but common. As he traveled, memories of his family went with him. He thought of his limping grandpa with his spear and his smile, his father hammering glowing iron for hours and hours on end, his mother teaching him to tend his hair and clothes. He left behind the remnants of his beautiful kingdom, the temples, and all of the names of his gods. Before him stretched a new path, one that would lead him to Eric, and then beyond. And though he didn't know it, this will be the beginning of something far greater. For unintentionally, Hantili was about to become the bearer of a testament. Thank you so much for watching it all the way here. This is my first original story. Of course, the setting is real, or at least it was a little bit over 3,200 years ago. I'll be sharing the following chapters of the story in some of the videos I'll do in the future. I will do one about Uruk, where it all began. Then what about the Elamite civilization, and so on. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure, as always. Ciao.